Russia's annexation of Crimea and the brutal Ukraine war have a common origin. A protest movement that erupted into an uprising against Ukraine's Kremlin-backed government. Euromaidan and the Revolution of Dignity. Let's take to the streets and join the rebellion. Ukraine, meaning frontier region in Old Slavic, lies in a geopolitical fault line between East and West. After the breakup of the USSR, the country was the first to declare its independence, but was unable to untangle itself from Moscow's sphere of influence. Ukraine remained deeply divided. Its pro-Western opposition sought stronger relations with the EU, but encountered resistance from Russophile political parties and the Kremlin's meddling intelligence services. As support for European integration grew, Ukraine and the EU announced the signing of an association agreement, a treaty deepening political, economic, and security cooperation. Meanwhile, in the Kremlin, a red line had been crossed. For Russia, Ukraine was a part of its near abroad, a sphere of influence essential to its national security. Losing the country to the EU, or worse, NATO, would mean a total geopolitical catastrophe. Moscow blasted a warning shot across the bow and implemented an embargo on Ukrainian imports, starting a trade war. Back in Kyiv, pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych and his ruling party of regions heard Putin's threats loud and clear. Yanukovych made a sudden right turn and suspended the EU association agreement. Instead, he aligned Ukraine with Putin's Eurasian Economic Union and backed billions in loans from the Russian government, moving back into Moscow's pocket. Following the demise of the EU association agreement, thousands of protesters mobilized to Kyiv's Independence Square, organizing through social media using the hashtag Euromaidan. Walled by makeshift barricades and festooned with EU flags, a sprawling protester citadel was erected across the central square. The demonstrators included civil society activists, anti-corruption campaigners, mainstream political parties, and ultranationalist groups. Euromaidan protesters demanded the president's resignation, an end to political repression, and re-engaging with Europe. An angry crowd toppled the statue of Lenin in Kyiv as a symbol of defiance. The Yanukovych government responded with violence, unleashing the Berkut police force. The Berkut and plainclothes provocateurs stormed Independence Square and clashed with Maidan self-defense units. Bodies piled on the streets. The government's brutality only spurred more demonstrations across the country. In the capital, protesters rushed the Ukrainian parliament, the Verkhovna Rada, under a hail of sniper fire. The crowds fought against the Berkut with rocks, firearms, and Molotov cocktails, and took control of the government district. Central authority unraveled. Vultures circled around Yanukovych. The Ukrainian parliament voted unanimously to remove Yanukovych from office and scheduled new elections. Opposition leader Alexander Turchinov was appointed acting president, a move that Russia decried as an extra-constitutional coup d'etat. In wake of the government's collapse, several former officials took their own lives. Viktor Yanukovych and his clique fled into exile. Following his puppet's fall, Vladimir Putin convened his closest advisors to plan his revenge. The Kremlin pulled its strings, and an army of masked troops known as Little Green Men captured the Crimean Peninsula, which was annexed following a dubious referendum. A pro-Russian separatist movement exploded in the Donbass as the Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics rebelled against Kyiv. As the fog of war lifted, it became clear that Putin's aim was to integrate Ukraine into Russia's orbit by force in a gamble to revive a dead empire. The Ukraine War, the largest conflict in Europe since World War II, was a direct consequence of the Euromaidan and the Revolution of Dignity, a hard-fought popular movement that triggered a geopolitical earthquake, threatening Russia's centuries-long domination over Ukraine. One protest was able to change the world and unleash the vengeance of a revanchist nuclear power.